Hi Year 2s and welcome to the extra activity that I've put on for today's learning. I really want to remind you about our fantastic resource that we use at school, and without even realising it, you have been doing this, some of you, at home using the Learning Journey Mountain. Now we know that it's a really useful resource to use. You've used it whilst you were in Year 1 and we started to use it in the autumn term as well. And the Learning Mountain really helps us to become resilient learners. And what I mean by resilient learners is facing those challenges that are not easy, that we might make mistakes with, but we keep going at them until we achieve. And that is a really good thing to be able to do. Now, if I show you the picture of the Learning Mountain, I think you'll all go, yes, I remember that. I've got one in my folder at school on my table for those of you that have been at home all the way through this. And we often get these out on our tables, and these help us to face those challenges that we have at school and can also help us to face the challenges that we have at home. Because with each learning challenge, we want to reach the very top of this mountain. And when we reach the very top of that mountain, we can feel proud of ourselves, we can feel excited, we can feel happy and also joyful that we've made it, that we've met that challenge. Because as I often say to you, Year 2s, if I didn't give you challenging learning, then there'd be no point me being there as a teacher if you could do everything. We've got to have those challenges. And also, how often do I say to you, it's okay to make mistakes? Because by making mistakes, you will become better learners. You will achieve more. So you must never feel worried about making those mistakes. And we all make those mistakes as we climb the learning mountain. Now, before we climb the learning mountain, we often talk about what tools will we need to achieve getting to the very top for each of our new challenges. And what I mean by that, just to remind you, is if you're faced with a writing task, in your rucksack, you might pack your dictionaries at school, your individual dictionaries that you have on your tables that I always ask you to get out when you're doing a writing task. So if you need a new spelling of a new word, you know to put your hand up, find the letter it begins with in your dictionary, and I come and write it down for you. So you'd pack that perhaps in your rucksack for a new writing task. You might also pack your phonics mat, some of you, to help you with the sounds of new words. You might also pack your grammar challenge cards so that it reminds you what grammar we've learnt in Year 2 and what grammar I want you to include and punctuation in your piece of writing, so that you've got that in front of you to remind you what to use in your piece of writing. Then once we've packed our rucksacks, we're ready to start that learning journey, that climb up the mountain to achieve that new piece of learning. And we might suddenly climb up, but then we might suddenly get stuck again, or we might have made a little mistake. But we have to think we're not going to give up. We're going to reach that top of that learning mountain. And we might think, I don't understand. It's too hard. And I want to quit. I'm no good at this. But we mustn't do that, Year 2s. We mustn't give up. We must be resilient. And we can work together. If you're at school, you've always got me or Mrs. Maud in Year 2 to help you climb that next part of the mountain if you don't understand something. Whilst you're at home, you've had your parents or your grandparents to help you to climb the learning mountain that little bit further. We work together on challenges and help one another. Sometimes even your friends help you, or you help your friends to achieve that next part of reaching our top of our mountain. And then we're almost at the top because we're beginning to understand this challenge. We've perhaps made mistakes along the way, but that's helped us to learn even better. And we've overcome them to go that another few steps further forward up the mountain. And then we start to think, I'm almost there. Look how far I've come. What else can I do to reach my goal, to get to the top of that learning mountain? We might need to take some more tools out of our rucksack that we pack to help us. So for example, in maths, you might have been able to do the first part, the first few questions of the maths tasks that I've asked you to do that day, but then things get a bit more challenging. So perhaps you need to get your 100 square out of your rucksack, or your number line, or those concrete resources such as the Dean's rods or the cubes to help you. And that is still fine. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to have tools to help us with our learning. And then we finally make it to the top. We achieve. And that makes us feel so happy. And that doesn't mean that everything is finished and everything has ended, because we know that there's always new challenges to face the next day. On the sign over here, it says, let's learn again. And we might then start at the bottom of our learning mountain, but we know by doing and thinking all these things, we can get to the top. We can overcome those challenges. We can keep trying. We can use our tools in our rucksack to help us, and we can become real resilient learners. And remember, making mistakes will help us be better learners. We must never be afraid to make mistakes. That is not a problem, Year 2s. Now that I've reminded you about the Learning Journey Mountain, I would like you to discuss with an adult when you have been right at the bottom of this mountain with a task that I've set you, perhaps over the last few weeks or since you've been in Year 2. And I would like you to tell an adult, what did you pack in your rucksack? What did you think about that you needed to help you with that challenge? And when you started gradually going up the mountain, who helped you to go up the next part of the mountain? Was it your mum, your dad, your grandma, your granddad? Or was it your teacher at school or a teaching assistant at school who's helped you recently to achieve that next part? And then you climbed a bit further. What did you do when you were almost at the top, but there were still challenges to face? Did you go back and use something else from your rucksack? Or did somebody else help you? Have a little think with an adult. And then I'd like you to tell your chosen adult, how did you feel when you reached the top of that mountain? When you reached that goal of that learning task? So you can either discuss that with an adult, like I've said, or you might want to write down your thoughts about that time when you have thought, yes, I've climbed to the top of that mountain with my learning. And when we return to school next week, Year 2s, we'll be doing lots of work about becoming really good, resilient learners, not giving up, meeting those new challenges, not worrying if we make mistakes, and we'll certainly be having these out on our tables to remind ourselves how we can get to the top of that mountain with our learning. So I just thought it was a good opportunity to remind you about it, and also for you to share with your parents and grandparents at home, those of you that haven't been into school at all during this past term as well. So enjoy discussing the Learning Journey Mountain, and I look forward to seeing your thoughts and when you have used it recently. Take care, Year 2s.